get started. So let me first of all welcome everybody to this seminar by the Department of Biomedical Engineering. My name is Aaron Ho, and next to me is Professor Sebastian Bayer, and we are colleagues in the department. Now, today's seminar, as you see on the screen, we've already shared the screen, is called COVID-19 and BME, 18 months into the pandemic. Now, we actually picked this topic because of the fact that we are now in the middle of a pandemic. It's not something that the whole world have ever encountered before. And this is also the very reason why we're doing our seminar on an online mode. But hopefully, we can learn something from this pandemic through today's seminar. In fact, this is the second year that we have been doing such activity, Program Exploration Day. And last year, on the same day, we did a seminar called COVID-19 and BME. And this year, as a follow-up, we add 18 months into the pandemic. Simply, we want to investigate the situation. So without further ado, I would like to move on to the next slide. Now, once again, I'm emphasizing that this is actually an interactive discussion forum. You're welcome to put in your questions through the chat function at the bottom or later on through live conversation. Well, today's program is first I'll have 5 minutes to do some background and update on COVID, and then followed by Professor Bayer's talk, 50 minutes on more information about what have been changed during the past 18 months. And then they come back to me for another 10 minutes of talk about post-pandemic developments, what we're looking for after this pandemic when it's over. And then finally followed by 15 minutes of open forum discussion, interactive between yourself and us. Well, as a recap, let me give you some numbers. Well, last year, on exactly the same day, 22nd of May, I did the internet search. There are websites that actually give you a live update of the numbers. So last year, on the same day, 22nd of May, we had 5.2 million cases. And now we have 165. And it's increased by 32 folds. And then last year, the number of deaths was 45, I think it's 45,000, right? No, actually 34,000. And this year, 3.4 million. So we have a 10.4-fold increase. The death rate dropped from 14% to 2%. Now, what can we learn from those numbers as we compare them? Well, first, the pandemic continues and there is no end to it. And we're still in a lockdown. And most developed countries in Europe and North America, they are showing signs of recovery. They're coming out of it because of efficient transportation and everything. They were first affected. So you can see how transportation has passed the disease to first developed countries because of the availability of transportation. And now they're moving to less developed countries like India and Central Asia. It's too early for us to predict an end of this pandemic now, but vaccines have become available and they become very widely used after very intense research efforts. So those are the numbers, those what we can tell, at least from the surface, from the numbers. And now I'm going to quickly hand over to Professor Bayer to further enlighten us about information on the COVID-19.
Thank you very much, Professor Ho. So the disease has changed of the way how our life looks like and what we're going to do. So we have one reference point that might have been a short warning in the past, right? It's in 2000, much better. And in 2003, which is almost 20 years ago, the first form for coronavirus has actually already highlighted what we're going to change. The way of serving chopsticks, for example, or wearing a face mask, that we do it nowadays, that originates in the first occurrence of coronavirus diseases. And Hong Kong is very much experienced since then. Many things of many guidelines that we use nowadays actually originate in these times, but the situation this time is much more complicated. Within 18 months, we still do not see an end of the coronavirus pandemic. While in 2003, it was almost within a year. The situation was under control, the virus was contained, and it somehow subsided from being a problem. Well, the global pandemic is affecting almost all the countries, and we do see a constant mutation of the virus, which somehow is indicative for how the pandemic is going to continue. It's likely going to stay, and we will have to find ways to fight mutations and fight the pandemic. So if you like, you can actually, if you have any question at this point of time, you can type your discussion questions, in the message text box of Zoom. Let me try to find it. There's something difficult to. Okay, there it is.
Chat. Chat.
Okay. Some bit of interaction. Hi, everyone. Any questions or ideas?
Right, so did you see a message?
Good. Yeah. So you should be able to see my message, and if you have any questions or you want to ask anything or propose anything, then please type it into the chat box. Okay, maybe if not now, then maybe later. Let's continue with our talk. The big question is, how can biomedical engineering actually help to improve the situation? How can biomedical engineering provide solutions to the problems that we are facing? Well, okay, let me try to. So definitely, the pandemic has changed the way how we work together. It's also changed the way how biomedical engineering is taught at university. In 2019, fall of 2019, just before the onset of the pandemic, we used to meet each other face to face. Nobody is wearing face masks at that time. And then about a year later, we all meet online. If we meet online in our own rooms or office, just a single person, then we don't wear face masks. Otherwise, we wear face masks all the time. And generally, these kind of face-to-face meeting has more or less stopped. So the way we work together and the way how we interact and how ideas are exchanged, how innovations are made, has also changed. It has become much more difficult to bring people from different places together, from different backgrounds, from different perspectives, and we actively have to find novel ways to bring people together to exchange the ideas. And one of the efforts that we are trying to do at the biomedical engineering department is to achieve that through online and distant meetings and learnings, for example, the local international student buddy scheme, where we try to give an international experience by forming teams between local students and students from other places to work on biomedical engineering problems and to find innovations. Okay. So the big question is, how will society evolve? If you look at these old, I'm not sure if some of you know this TV series from the 1960s. It's a Star Trek, the first series. So they have a device called the tricorder, which was used to diagnose diseases and to find basically find a medical problem. This was designed in 1995. It was envisioned technology for 300 years later, 2265. And the very fascinating aspect about this is just about 60 years ago. And we look at nowadays technology. It looks quite not so new anymore. Actually, design looks not very fashionable anymore. If you look at our real technology, which we have in everyday life now, that's the ubiquitous handphones with, in some cases, if you use a certain product, there's a speech recognizing system where you can ask questions. You could ask, for example, tell me what is my blood oxygen level if you have a small biosensor, just the size of a ring sitting on your thumb or the other fingers. So this kind of language interface has been designed in 2017, and it is reality since 2011. And this kind of technology, where we have a small sensor, is reality as of 2021. So what we can already see is that the pandemic will boost digitalization also in health technologies. But we should always be reminded by digitalization and soft tech is only one side of the coin, because humans will always need deep tech. For example, sensors that can actually read biological parameters. Okay, let me see if anyone has any questions. It's supposed to be an interactive exchange of ideas. So if you have any questions or ideas, then please just type them into the chat box, or you could also open up your microphone for asking questions. Okay, if not, I'm just going on. I believe also that the perception of biomedical engineering has changed quite a bit in the public. With the onset of pandemics, certain medical products became very rare. Actually, there was a shortage, especially for ventilators. It's basically a device that aids the breathing of patients, or intubation devices where you insert a tube into the airways of patients and you actually affect a higher oxygen saturation by pumping in and out the air, or enriched air, oxygen enriched air. And in case your lungs really cannot function anymore because the coronavirus has damaged them too much, you have too much inflammation in your lungs, you can no longer absorb oxygen from air. Biomedical engineering provides another solution for that, which is called the ECMO, or extracorporeal oxygenation device. It's a device where your blood flow is led out of the body into a membrane device where the oxygen is basically introduced in your blood, and the oxygenated blood is passed back into the body. Right? And that is one of the aspects of biomedical engineering. Now, doctors, they know how to treat patients. But if you have a doctor alone will not be able to save the patient. The doctor needs technology, right? Technology that is designed by biomedical engineers and manufactured by medical device manufacturers. So without the technology, without the biomedical engineering side, it would not be possible to fight against coronavirus that much. And then if we look at other aspects, certainly this kind of products are driven by the pandemic. It's innovative products. We also see state-of-the-art oxygen supply in a modern hospital in Hong Kong, for example. But certainly we also need to raise the question when you compare the two images about accessibility and inequality. Not everyone has the luxury of having access to state-of-the-art medical equipment, and not everyone can afford the latest innovations. So that's something we have to think about, even as biomedical engineers, providing solutions, technological solutions for the very basic requirements as well as the high-end technology. Okay. So lessons from treatment and prevention of COVID-19. It is more or less consensus now that COVID-19 will become endemic. That means that we cannot really expect the COVID-19 to disappear. It will likely stay around forever, and we have very limited treatment options. So once a patient is infected, we have some clinical ways to aid the treatment, but have not really managed to develop specific treatments in this short period of time, only 1 year or 18 months. So the doctor's advice is get vaccinated. And the vaccination is actually a big hope. If you look at countries that have achieved a high rate of vaccination, the leading country certainly is Israel, which vaccinates with the BioNTech mRNA vaccine. And they have, you look at 60% vaccination. If you see that only adults can be vaccinated, I believe persons above the age of 16, that means in Israel, almost every person above the age of 16 is actually vaccinated. United Kingdom, we see vaccination with AstraZeneca, 2 of the vaccines which are very effective, and they have achieved about 55% vaccination rate by now. Germany, 40%, Singapore, similar in size to Hong Kong, is 35%, Hong Kong only a bit short of 20%. The fascinating aspect is that Israel actually has reduced most of the restrictions associated to the coronavirus pandemic, and it will loosen up all the restrictions, I believe, later this month. And we see actually with the increase in vaccination rate, there's hardly any transmission, despite not wearing face masks, not having any social restrictions, going for football games and everything that, basically no transmission of the disease anymore because of the high vaccination rate. So the freedom that we used to have before the coronavirus pandemic, family reunions, the safety for everyone, protection of those which are not in good medical condition, this all will come with the vaccination. And we also have to say that very likely with yearly refreshment checks. So one vaccination will not be enough. We will likely have to go every year. I want to highlight it very shortly because it's a very nice success story of biomedical engineering. There's quite a bit of biomedical engineering in the BioNTech mRNA vaccine, which is also available in Hong Kong for vaccination. So you have the mRNA, which is packaged, formulated into a lipid nanoparticle. So the mRNA, to design it itself, is biomedical engineering, and packaging is also biomedical engineering. mRNA is introduced into the cell, where the cell, normally in the upper arm of the muscle cell and other cells produce proteins that induce antibody formation. And these antibodies fight off the coronavirus. So if you look at it, this particle, to organize it, we have the mRNA inside, and then there's a specialized lipid surrounding the mRNA. We have something that helps the particle to be internalized into the cell, and we have something to stabilize the particle so it doesn't disintegrate. And as mentioned before, there's a lot of biomedical engineering inside. There's the development of lipid formulation, designing of mRNA. There's biological evaluation in cell culture as well as in animal studies before it goes into clinical trials. So all these aspects are aspects of biomedical engineering. And if we look at it, what can actually the situation of the COVID-19 pandemic bring? It could be the onset of a lot of technological developments, technological innovation. We see, for example, the case of the mRNA vaccines, which has now been introduced as a new drug class. And maybe tomorrow we will see that we can treat more infectious diseases, we can even treat cancer. And we have some very specialized immunotherapy. Maybe in the very future, we can fight inflammation, neuroinflammation, regenerative. We can do something for regenerative medicine, maybe fighting osteoarthritis or similar things. That actually is some very interesting aspect of the pandemic. The pandemic might actually open up opportunities for future technological development. And with that, I'm passing back to Professor Ho for this third part of today's presentation.
Thank you, Professor Ben. Well, Professor Ben actually has addressed the vaccine aspect of it. And as you can see, there's a very good chance that through vaccination, the pandemic will slowly subside, and hopefully, in the end, everything will be back to normal. Now, my slides is going to talk about what do we actually get out of this time of difficulty. Now, for the past 18 months, the whole world has suffered in many ways. We've not been able to travel. We have, a lot of us actually not even been able to find jobs. The unemployment rate has gone up. Economy has been hardly hit. And people, some fear of catching a disease, and some even die because of it. Difficult time also brings opportunities. Because of the impact of it, we have seen, people now can manufacture face masks very fast and high volume and low cost. And there is a sharp increase of sanitization consumables. So the economy for sanitization agents suddenly bloomed. Of course, personal protection garment, as you can see from the images. And then software apps, people actually write software apps to prevent, to register people where they go. And rapid body temperature scanning devices, something that you see everywhere, every day, everywhere you go. So they are all for the prevention. What about diagnosis? And I remember last year when the case just started, the time taken for a rapid DNA screening was much longer. We were talking about days, and then later on we were talking about hours. Now we are more or less talking about minutes. Okay, the screening hardware and consumables has increased and advanced dramatically. And also we have seen other antibody antigen biosensor kits being put on the market. They are less accurate, but they're very fast and cheap. So you can do it at home and very convenient. And to actually study the virus in laboratory, we see a lot of high-speed DNA sequencing to actually gain the sequence of any nucleotides associated with the virus and the subsequent mutation and so on. So diagnosis has advanced. And finally, treatment. Treatment has also advanced. For example, in hospitals in Hong Kong, we suddenly have built a number of what we call negative pressure wards, so that any infectious disease will be contained within the ward only. Air only flow in and come out from the top of the building. So there's a lot of new design for hospital wards. And people have been talking about oxygen breathing apparatus because of the damage of the lung. So patients need actually breathing aids. So there's been a lot of advancement on that too. And of course, accelerated development of new vaccines. It's practically, a dose of steroid for the development of vaccines. It used to be many years of clinical trial, and now it's only taken a few months to complete a clinical trial for the vaccine to be launched and widely used across the world by many countries. Now, as Professor Bayer just mentioned, in fact, a key technology behind the new vaccine is called synthetic mRNA. These mRNA are actually man-made by sequencing the mRNA of the virus and then mass manufacture them in the laboratory. And then another key component is called nanovesicles or nanolipids, which actually are nano-sized compartments that store the mRNA, and then they can actually evade the cell protective proteins, and there are pores on the cell membrane. Then they can go in and then stimulate the cell to generate the antibody that will stop the effects of the vaccine. Okay, so it's taken them only several months to complete clinical trial for the treatment. So with all this in the background, with all these new technologies and advancements already being done, triggered by the pandemic, what do we see? Now, soon we'll be seeing the end of this pandemic, but the technology, the techniques will stay. So this is actually what I have in mind, that very likely those that stay and will continue to prosper and then change our healthcare services. First, healthcare surveillance. Now we've got widely deployed diagnosis kits, rapid point-of-care diagnosis kits, temperature measuring devices everywhere, widespread use of mobile telecommunications for continuous health parameter monitoring. Okay, so nowadays, as Professor Bayer also mentioned, we can actually wear a ring that can monitor our body parameters. And you also see significant price drop of air filtration fabrics like face masks, okay, because of our know-how of making them very fast and cheaply. Okay, so there will be emergence of new domestic air or water cleaning applications, because we can make use of those low-cost, highly efficient filtering fabrics for other purposes like air, water, filtration, cleaning applications. As I said, rapid disease diagnosis for DNA, for antigen protein-based devices at home for early diagnosis, for early treatment, so that patients can actually know the state of their health or their infections very early on, so that they can get treatment as quickly as possible before anything starts to develop and deteriorate. And more importantly, synthetic RNAs and synthetic DNAs, nanovesicles, act as carriers that can actually go directly into the cell and deliver nucleic acids. Okay, well, these are programmed nucleic acids that can be used for many purposes: virus infections, tumors, regulation of immune systems, gene therapy, just like what Professor Bayer just pointed out. That is a direction that can have profound impact on treating of health conditions. And much shorter drug development cycle time, and then that can give us treatment, new drugs, new treatment therapies. Okay, and finally, advancements in hospital ward designs, life support, okay, facilities. So those are the immediate application opportunities. So after when the pandemic has ended, they will stay and they will affect our healthcare services. Well, in the long term, what about some 30, 50 years down the road? On this side, I'm listing out the major health concerns. Aging population. At the bottom, I actually show a chart that between 1980 and 2050, how the different age groups developed and emerged. As you can see that the middle age group continue to expand and become the major part of the population. However, on the other hand, the 60 plus and 80 plus groups goes from 1980.4 billion, gradually increased to 1.4 and 2.1 in 2050. And you can see manifold of increase over the years for the elderly. Cardiovascular diseases, because of the lack of exercise and the food we eat and the lifestyle, cardiovascular will continue to become important. Cancers, diabetes, and infections, and so on. So as the world population increases and demand for healthcare services increases, cost and efficacy will be the key parameters for us to really address. Those are the issues. And those are the BME's primary driving force, because it is the enabling discipline that supports all instruments and non-human aspects of the healthcare systems. And if you look at the value chain, you can see innovation, research, design, manufacturers, sales, and services, and those are domains of our graduates' career developments. And the expertise that we are going to impart are international standards, protocols, science and engineering, IT, data analysis, materials, devices, and equipment. So those are the actual expertise and know-how that BME aims to address. So without further ado, I think that's more or less the presentation that I want to give in this seminar with Professor Bear. And now I'm going to actually open the time to a discussion forum in which participants are welcome to type in your message, then we'll answer them online. Or you can actually voice out using the microphone. So now I'm going to hand over the time to everybody. So please take part. Shall I share? Shall I stop sharing the screen? Let's share the screen. Okay. Amongst you, any questions? You can just type in your questions or any suggestions. Anything that has triggered you to think a bit further. Or I understand that most of you are actually from DSE, you are about to enter university. Perhaps you can also ask questions about our program or admission-related issues, if you like.
Or any general question about the situation, pandemic situation, or biomedical engineering is most welcome. I'll try our best to, if you're going to ask.
Okay, so what is the general career path for biomedical engineering?
It's a very nice question, I guess, because biomedical engineering is very multidisciplinary. You can choose to work in academia, to work on academic innovations. You can also choose to make your own startup company, or to work in a hospital, or you could join a medical device equipment manufacturer as an engineer or manager, or you could become a venture capitalist, spotting the next big investment opportunity. So I guess the answer is that biomedical engineering is very much opportunity open. So all the different things that you could imagine, many could be done with a biomedical engineering foundation. What is your perspective?
We do exit survey on our graduates. So every year when one class of students graduates, we sort of keep in contact with them and we ask them what they do after graduation. Now, according to our statistics, 25 is quite equally distributed among 4 domains. Each constitutes 25%. 25% for furthering studies in R&D, 25% for working in a biomedical company, supplies, or in healthcare system, the hospital authority, or government health department. 25% working for the engineering domain, and then the other 25% working for others. So they work on other disciplines. So that's basically more or less what we have so far.
Yes, another question. Would the changing of human genomes, BME, help the cure or prevention of infection diseases like COVID-19? Well, the question is, I think, is a bit difficult because although we might have the opportunity to change the genome of humans, the question is whether we are
allowed to, or we should
do, or whether we should do it from an ethical point of view. And then the second aspect to it is, I think at this point of time, it is still a bit uncertain how the change in the genome would relate to the susceptibility of infectious diseases. So there is still, from 2 perspectives, doing something like changing the genome of humans, I guess, would be difficult. Because from the ethics point of view and also from the research point of view, we simply do not know enough at this point of time.
Well, this is a good question. In fact, it's very profound. If you look at the technology roadmap of sequencing the human genome, about 20 years ago, it took many laboratories, joint effort, many months to sequence the genome of a cell. For example, the completion of the human genome sequence took a few years, the whole world, many labs to complete at that time. As technology has advanced, today it takes a few days to sequence the complete genome of a species. So if you actually look at how things developed, sequencing of genes will be much faster and faster and faster. In other words, we have almost full knowledge of the sequence of our cells. If you take one cell, for example, from me, very soon, at a very affordable cost, I can have a computer memory stick come back to me, in which there is the sequence of all the genes of myself. Now, the next question is, how those sequences can be correlated to my characteristics or my properties, whatever you call them. Okay? And then the next question is, you find an accurate knowledge about how individuals' sequence relates to my state of health. Then you start to think about modifying them. There are technologies that can modify them. Last year, the Nobel Prize was given to a scientist who found a way of cleaving a gene and then inserting new parts into the gene, i.e., basically you can manipulate the gene and then divide the cells. So we have the technology, but the next question is, do you want to do that? Modify the gene and then sort of make yourself immune to something. You don't know what other side effects you get. You also don't know the aspect of living. You want yourself to be programmable. So a very big series of very profound ethical questions should start to emerge. But along the way, technology has paved the way for better understanding, better cure of diseases. So we are still now developing techniques to sequence a single DNA within minutes. There is a big project initiated by, I think, Singapore, $1 US sequencing of the human genome. Ultimate goal, $1.
Okay, nice achievement.
I hope I can answer your question. Any other questions? Good, thank you. I've answered your questions. Technology can continue. And you also notice that technology nowadays has actually advanced much faster than before. It has a lot of positive feedback. You develop something new, that something tends to aid and help further development of other new technology, and then the cycle time becomes shorter and shorter and shorter.
Yeah, there's another very good question. Just showing up. Are there ways to directly attack COVID-19 virus instead of vaccination, which is a more passive approach? The answer is partially yes, there are other ways. There's one company in the US who actually has the blood plasma from previously infected patients, from patients which already recovered. Those patients have antibodies in their blood, and it's one way to actually derive the antibodies from the blood plasma of a previously infected patient and give the antibody specific to the virus to a patient who is suffering very strongly from the COVID-19 virus, which a patient which cannot recover by him or herself. So there are ways to address the COVID-19 virus, but these seem to be, firstly, not to be possible to be done on a large scale for everyone at this present point of time. And also they might not be very effective. So there's still, there's still a lot of research effort to find drugs which reduce the symptoms of infection and drugs which can target the virus directly to alleviate the suffering of the patients. That's a huge area of current biomedical and also biomedical engineering research.
Right. So this question is, what it asks is actually, are there ways to directly attack COVID-19 virus instead of vaccination, which is more passive approach? Yes, you're right. This is a passive approach. You change the human body to resist the virus. You hope that you don't need to change your body, but rather to eradicate the virus on its head. Now, yet, in principle, this is the best. Well, as an engineer, I can only give you answers from a more physical point of view, like keeping the environment clean, air filters, For example, the air filter, we call them HEPA filter, high performance air filters, are actually developed for integrated circuit manufacturing industry. They call clean rooms. So they can filter all kinds of particles and make the room almost, absolutely clean. So you can actually do that at cost. It costs you money. On the other hand, you can also ask other questions. For example, do we need very clean environment so that our body do not have a chance of getting trained up for resisting bacteria and infection? So there is a balance between training our body versus keeping our environment clean. And that's the beauty of healthcare or BME, because it's not a simple equation. You do it on one side, you offset the other. You do it on the other side, you offset the other side. So there is a lot of balancing, and that opens a lot of doors for us to play, and we can sort of work on either side to be able to generate economic, or you call it business. Okay, so further, another question.
Let me read the question to everyone. So I want to ask how much BME values biology, as I didn't take biology as my elective during the past 3 years. Do you have any good suggestion?
So this question is concerned whether biology is important or not. Well, amongst the students we have taken in, there is a very distinctive distribution. Those who take biology, they take chemistry and physics, or only 2 of them. Those who take further maths or M2, they don't take biology. So there's a distinct separation between with and without biology. And among the students we've taken in, they are of equal distribution. Now, BME is a difficult program. It requires biology, chemistry, physics, and maths, and computer science. Okay? And the first 4 are core, very important. You need all of them. And there's no student with preparation, very few, with all 4 preparation before they come in. So what we do is, those without biology, when they come in, we send them to take 3-unit courses of biology. Those without maths, we send them to 3-unit maths. Those without physics or chemistry, they take 3 units of those, in order to help them better prepare for the program contents. Biology is important, but it's not a must, because students, when they come in, they have the opportunity to catch up. Okay. Well, equally important are physics and chemistry, as well as mathematics.
Yeah, I agree. That's the beauty of biomedical engineering. It's interdisciplinary. Okay, there's another question. Question is, why COVID-19 is more widely spread and death toll, has a higher death toll than other coronaviruses? Do you have an idea for that?
COVID-19 is more infectious because of the nature of its, the molecule virus, because it's got a way to very easily break down, it's an enzyme, break down the surface protein of cell. So it can very easily get in. So the nature of its virus has the capability of removing surface protein that can protect the cell, so it can go in very easily. And that's why it's so infectious. Second thing is death toll. Well, death toll is not as high as SARS. 2003, SARS, the death toll was something like
16%.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah,
16,
very high.
Yeah, I believe 16% for that.
Yeah, and now, COVID-19 is only 2 on average. Well, you also see that in the past 18 months, death rate has tumbling down from 14 to 2. So because of advancement in technology, advancement in ways of treating the disease. So it's not as bad as what people think. And it's only affecting very old people, elderly people. Young people seem to have a much better chance of surviving the disease.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, it's basically the question of a death toll, okay, of that particular virus is not that high. It's just that the infection is widely spread, affecting many people. So that the total numbers of people dying are relatively high. One of the things you could do is to compare to seasonal influenza. Seasonal influenza was also having a quite high death toll the previous years, but not the last year, because the prevention measures for corona have actually subdued the influenza quite a bit.
Yeah.
So
very few influenza cases these days.
Yeah. So there's basically many things that need to be taken into consideration to assess the danger of infectious diseases.
So why COVID is infectious is because it's nature. Yeah, the virus itself is very infectious. Now let's look at the next question.
What concentration areas can I choose if I can enter BME in the coming year?
Well, when you join BME first year and second year, you don't need to join any concentration. You just take all the compulsory courses. Most of the courses are compulsory, very few elective. In the third and fourth years, most of the courses are elective. Then you can start thinking of concentration. You don't need to actually think about concentration yet because you have got at least 2 years to think about it. And there are 4 concentration areas within our program: imaging, biosensors and instrumentation. What else? Tissue engineering. And then what else? I can't remember. I think there were there were 3. Both. Well, yeah, I can't remember all 4 of them. But then check our website. You don't need to think about it yet because you have, you need to know the subject matter before you can make a decision. Yeah, our administration staff are already, showing you the link for the concentrations. Okay, so you can just click in and discover yourself.
Okay, any more questions or ideas? If you have ideas that you want to discuss.
Okay.
The question is, I would like to ask if it is possible to cure COVID-19 by using gene therapy. Well, if you look at how certain vaccines are operating at the moment, the AstraZeneca vaccine is basically using a vector virus to introduce the information to produce proteins against which the human body produces the antibodies. So science gives us tools at hand to actually introduce genetic modifications to human cells. So from the technological point of view, we could also introduce new genes into the humans. But there's 2 points to it. One is the ethical consideration. We don't know how that is going to affect the humans in the long term. And the second thing is, it might not be very advisable to do it for coronavirus treatment because the coronavirus modifies itself, it evolves, it mutates all the time. So if you introduce something into the human genome, it's kind of permanent. It's very difficult to remove it, right? But then 1 year later, it might not be very effective to treat the prevailing strain, mutated strain of the coronavirus. So then you would have to do another genetic modification and another one and another one. So that seems to be, although technologically it might be possible, it seems to be not such a good idea to do it.
Yeah.
Do you have
Well, my comment is that there is a very strong ethical aspect of it. Technology has actually already currently been able to modify gene permanently, i.e. gene therapy. Now, therapy, this word, you need to be very careful about it. Again, when you actually try to protect one side, there is another side that you don't know. because you don't know, you don't want to do it yet. Now, up until now, the overall school of thought is that we use nature, we use the forces of nature to do things because it's safer, because we know the history, we know what has happened before. So even the vaccines that we developed, we actually use the genetic codes of the virus itself, because this is what we have done before. This is what we rely on, and is reliable. Now, if you actually apply a gene therapy very sort of brutally, perhaps 10 years down the road, 20 years down the road, or 1 or 2 generations down the road, the ethical issue might have been addressed or changed in such a way that people can accept the brutal way of doing genetic therapy that is modifying the genome of individual permanently for curing, for example, COVID-19 or any virus infection. If it becomes safe and acceptable, it is possible. It's a question of whether we want to do it yet.
Agree. Is there any technologies or methods that can predict the modification of the virus before they infect people?
Yes and no. Yes, is that the sequence capacities, genome sequencing capacity, will be able to actually know very quickly the genome of all the species we want to look at. So we have all the sequences on the computer, just ATGC sequence numbers. The next question is how we can correlate that sequence or parts of that sequence. You always talk about, very short chain, very short sequence to a particular outcome of the disease. I think we probably know sort of very small proportion, right? Most of them are still unknown, right? That includes virus. Now, you may have heard of, the mutation of the COVID-19 as it's moved from other countries into India or other countries into the UK. You have the modified mutation. The reason is they've been trying to compare the virus that they found to the information from their information bank. And the computer has been able to do it very quickly. You're talking about, a few hours to be able to sort of match them. And then suddenly found, is one nucleotide modification. One nucleotide has changed. And all the things have changed because of the protein that they assemble. And then mutation. But we cannot predict it yet. We can predict it up to a certain level, very limited level at the moment. It depends on how quickly we can sequence information, how much we can develop the AI, the computer software to analyze them to be able to identify the characteristics of the sequence. That is still at the frontier of development, as much as I can tell you.
Yeah, I agree. I think it might be possible from what we know from molecular biology to predict certain mutations to be more likely than others. But the big question is, how does that relate to the infectiousness of the virus? Right? That is still something that's very difficult to predict. So I believe we have technological approaches to address it, but they are not fully developed yet to make useful and accurate predictions to fight the pandemic. Yeah. Okay. Any more questions from your side?
Right. So as we have overshot the time allotted to our session, I think we better close the session very quickly. Now, if there is no further questions, I would like to end this seminar at this point. So, no questions? Right, so I see no further questions. Okay, then thank you very much. I really appreciate your time and efforts to join this seminar. I hope you find it useful, and it's been my pleasure, as well as Professor Bayers, to do the session and interact with you. I wish you all the best, and I hope you have enjoyable summer, and hopefully we can see each other face to face after the summer. Well, there's every sign that the university will actually open up, and the new semester will be everything back to normal. Students will come to campus, and we have all classes conducted face to face. Thank you very much. So bye bye. Take care. Bye bye. Bye bye.